As the Story Grows. I'm Brian Patton. Today we welcome Scalp guitarist Devan Fuentes to the podcast. The new Scalp record, Not Worthy of Human Compassion, is out today on Closed Casket Activities. Devan talks about connecting with grindcore and power violence, how Scalp evolved from a gag into a real band, his inspiration for Not Worthy of Human Compassion, the band's visual aesthetic, and more. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of As the Story Grows. If you're brand new to the podcast, welcome. Thanks for checking us out. You can find links in the show notes or at asthestorygrows.com for our mailing list, our Discord server, and our Patreon page, where $1 a month gets you early access to every episode. And if you like what you hear and don't want to miss an episode, I would love it if you subscribed to the podcast on your podcast platform of choice. Enjoy today's conversation with Devan from Scalp.
Oh, now I can hear you.
Okay. All right, cool. I don't know.
Good morning.
Hey,
How you doing, brother?
Yeah, not for me, but morning for you. I appreciate you taking the time to hang out. Or I don't know, are you like a morning person, or are you a night owl, and this is like just hella crazy to be up right now?
I'm an every time person.
Okay.
I've always had a wild schedule. So I did like wrestling in high school, was up super early. Then I was a barista up super early. I was a bartender, worked late at night. Now I work in healthcare. So I've done 24s. Right now I work a night schedule. And then my last job before that was like on call. So I've worked and slept every hour that exists. So I just make my schedule work.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, I was a night owl, and then I started working a morning shift at a radio station, which was like, you start work at 4:30 in the morning. So that completely changed me. And so what got you into music?
What got me into music?
Yeah.
I mean, ever since I was young, my first memories of music was like Napster, downloading songs and whatever. My dad kind of exposed me to like blues and grunge, and like Napster era was basically like a bunch of mainstream rock kind of stuff. And then it wasn't until I was like 10, 11, 12 when I started getting into like classic rock, but kind of like diving a little bit more into the mainstream stuff, like going into 70s, 80s. Black Sabbath was a big one. AC/DC was a big one. But it wasn't until, I was about 12, 13 when I kind of got into more extreme music. So I started with punk. My mom grew up in the like Fullerton 80s punk scene. Okay. And she exposed me to a bunch of punk bands. And then from there, I was living in Corona at the time. And in Corona, Showcase was going off, like, the whole deathcore scene was pretty live. And my cousin was a little older than me. He was a freshman, and he was just throwing music at me. So the first few things with extreme music that I got into was like the Locust, Spaz, Dystopia. So much more of like a grindcore, power violence intro to all that stuff. And then when all the deathcore stuff like Suicide Silence and Impending Doom was coming out, like it was all demos that I was listening to. And and that kind of just took off for me.
Nice. When you're getting that like grindcore stuff, does that immediately click with you, or are you just like, what is that?
You mean like when I hear new stuff?
No, like when you first heard it.
When I first heard it, it just immediately caught my attention.
Nice.
I mean, a band like the Locust is probably like for most people the hardest to listen to.
Yeah.
I imagine. Super quick songs. I mean, that was an element of it that was really attractive to me. Like, holy shit, the song's done.
Yeah.
but they did so much in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Another thing was, all these bands like Spaz, and they would have those samples. So tons of samples.
Yeah.
Even with like those early metalcore, deathcore tracks, the samples always, it's funny because still to this day, there'll be certain samples from like movies and stuff where like 20 years later, I'm like watching an old movie or something and I hear it. I'm just go, hey, that's a sample from track 15 of this, cause it's just written in my memory. But I mean, with like grind and stuff, like blast beats and the style of singing, yeah, it was just, I didn't second guess it. It wasn't like a learning curve or anything. I was just into it from the start.
Yeah. Nice. What drew you to guitar?
My parents didn't want me playing drums. My dad kind of nurtured me getting into music. I remember at some point I got a check in the mail from my grandma to go get a guitar. I've always had an instrument in the house. I've always had a guitar in the house. And I didn't really start taking it any serious until I started getting into those, mainstream rock bands. I was like, I want to learn a Nirvana song or Stone Temple Pilots, different things. But just basically once my passion for listening to music grew, my passion for playing guitar grew. In middle school, I started doing percussion. So it was just a little bit of, snare drum, bass drum, timpani, all these different percussive instruments. And I found that fun. I didn't take it too seriously. We were just more so playing in band. It was a class. I loved it, but it was more so something that I saw that was like a catalyst to approach guitar in a new way. Yeah. Learning to read music and read beats and stuff helped me articulate or translate different riffs, or being able to play different things on guitar.
Nice. At what point there are you like trying to start and form bands?
Quickly after. So, I mean, in middle school, I joined this little garage punk band right before I moved back to San Clemente, California. And that's originally where I grew up. So I grew up next to the beach. I only lived in Corona for about 3 years. I actually currently live in Corona right now. But at the time, I joined a band called Slow Children. And we just played in the garage because, eventually I moved back to Orange County. So that had the Prophet Brothers in the band, and they were like pretty well-known young street punk band. And Justice ended up going off to write some solo records under his name, Justice Prophet. And he's great. He's always been an influence and someone who's found success and just been a good songwriter. I just remember he could sing, he could play drums, he could play guitar. Yeah.
Nice.
So, I mean, we were going to little garage punk shows after I got into, that whole world of music. And then, quickly after, all the extreme stuff got into my hands, and then Showcase, and then kind of over from there.
Let's talk about Scalp, how this project got started.
How it got started. Well, playing in bands from there on didn't really stop. Just had tons of little projects. Once I had a few serious bands, where we were actually trying to push, record, and, become better musicians, etc. I had tons of different bands, but none of them were, I would say, extreme music. No vocals that you can't understand or anything. I always had that that background, but it wasn't until 2018 where I was working at this coffee shop, and one of my other band's drummers came into the shop, and me and my manager, which is the singer of Scalp, we were joking before he walked into the cafe and just said, hey, it would be really funny if we put together a band for Halloween. It would be like a joke. Like, we don't need to take it serious, but we could just write a bunch of songs. We don't even need lyrics. We could just scream. It'd be like death metal or power violence or whatever. Let's just riff around. And then, so we're all joking about it. And then, my drummer comes in, is just immediately down. And it was funny because me and Cole Rogers, we always had a different take on extreme music. Like, he loved black metal and like war metal and a few different things that I wasn't, super dialed in on, whereas I came from more like a hardcore power violence background. Yeah. So we would talk about music, but we never had a complete dialogue. But it wasn't until we started goofing around and playing music where we really started, taking a closer look at each other's interests. Yeah. So we talked about doing a house show, and that house show ended up turning into a show at our local, the worst dive bar. We promoted it. We wore ski masks and threw blood on ourselves, took pictures, and it became like this, I don't know, it became a bigger thing where all our friends were actually stoked, like, to come see us do something stupid. Meanwhile, we've had all these actual bands that people are like, I'll see if I can make it, whatever. We put on some fucking stupid Halloween band that's playing at a dive bar, and people go, oh, fuck yeah, I'm there. So the show happened, and we just made it very, very theatrical. We played like a scary sample. We went to the parking lot. We threw blood on each other, put on our ski mask, took our shirts off, and then we had like a grand entrance onto the stage. We started, and like this place was packed, and everyone went crazy. Nice. But the most significant thing that came from that was that we learned that Cole Rogers was an amazing frontman. The performance that he did, he's actually very quiet. He's very reserved. He's very calm. So no one would have expected that kind of performance from him. I mean, he was rolling on the ground, throwing people around. It was really exciting to see. And kind of after that, we decided, we should start a real band. I mean, we had people telling us like, we get it. It's a joke, but you guys should do a band. Yeah. And so we did, and it kind of just evolved from there. We did our demo, which, again, wasn't taken too seriously. It was just more so supposed to be like a hard punk power violence record. We were influenced a lot more by like SHACKLEROT and World Peace and a few different, power violence bands. So we wrote a quick demo. It was, I think, 8 songs. Yeah. And, we didn't really think much of it. It was just, let's just write it. Let's take this, maybe not silly, but taken less serious approach to this band, and just put stuff out. And, we were happy with what we came up with. We knew we wasn't fully actualized or anything, but we eventually, once that came out, we decided like, hey, let's actually write a record. Let's go get it recorded by the right person. And now I get it. We did a demo. Let's put a serious band together. Yeah. So everyone was down, and we, again, kind of took a similar approach, but took it a lot, definitely more serious from there. but our writing was happening so quickly.
Hmm.
We wrote our first record, Domestic Extremity, very quick. And it all came from just, you know, quote, throwing paint at the wall and seeing what sticks.
Yeah.
Or however they say it.
Yeah.
But we were excited with what we came up with. We didn't think about it too much. It was just more so, you know, structure, lyrics, ideas, themes, and it got wrapped up together really quickly. I sent a voice memo. I mean, I've always used voice memos to demo anything that I'm writing for music, and I still do. We sent a voice memo of the last track on that record called Depleted Mass over to Taylor Young. And he said, yeah, I don't know about your last stuff, but this song's cool. Yeah, let's like set a date. So, yeah, we, and then from there, you know, we had a lot more opportunities. We started taking each part of our band a bit more serious, and I've always pushed it to be something bigger, or at least to be a product of it, the maximum of what we could do.
Yeah. Yeah. In that kind of quick recording and kind of initial groundswell, obviously Domestic Extremity comes out November 2020. Like, your lockdown happens, COVID happens in the midst of that. Was there this like feeling of just like, oh fuck, like what is happening now?
Well, of course. I mean, everyone had that
obviously
feeling.
Outside of the
right
globalness of it.
But while looking at the band and everything, yeah. I would say yes, for the most part, but there was a little thought in the back of my head that this band isn't, you know, that serious. We wrote this record really quick. Of course, like, you know, we're recording with an amazing engineer. We just got it pitched to Creator Destructor at the time. You know, they were putting out records by Gulch and Tsunami and, you know, like all these legendary bands. And it was cool, but we didn't really have those expectations going into it. We just wanted to write a record. And I even kind of talked to the guys. I said, yeah, man, if this record doesn't really go anywhere, like, I don't know, we don't have to do this band anymore.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal. And, you know, we thought the pandemic would make everything slower or lamer, but it definitely did the opposite, because, you know, everyone was on their phone, everyone was on their computer, everyone was watching old live videos. Everyone was just very hungry to consume any media that dropped, especially new stuff. And as we saw after the pandemic, so many kids got into the genre during that time. And so when we came back, we played some bar called Area 51. And there's a couple of videos on YouTube. And this place was just so packed to the point where we were just pushed up against our amps, just trying to keep everything plugged in. And the next day, was it the next day? I think it was like the next week, we ended up going up to San Jose. We played with Spy and Zulu, and we were actually pretty surprised. We're like, you know, these are newer bands too, but we're playing with these awesome bands in the Bay. And then this was a sold out show. There was probably 900 people in there, and we just kind of looked at each other like, yo, what the fuck? How did this happen? And especially coming out of such a dead period like the pandemic, just go from that to like, hey, guess what? Like, you're a real band. A lot of people vouch for you. We're like, oh, all right, cool.
Yeah. That's awesome. How'd you guys then get connected with Closed Casket?
With Closed Casket, basically just, you know, same as getting connected with Creator Destructor. I think this kind of happens most of the time with bands that go into record. It's about finding the right engineer, and the right engineer has the connection to the label. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, Taylor pitched us to Creator Destructor, and he also pitched us to Closed Casket. Justin from Closed Casket, it sounded like he kind of knew who we were and had an eye on us before Black Tar happened. But he actually heard our demos, and before Black Tar was, recorded, he just said, yeah, I want this record.
The album's called Not Worthy of Human Compassion. I don't know how much input or work you have on the lyrical side, but where'd that kind of title and theme for the record come from?
So this record it's definitely my baby. I put most of myself into it. I wrote probably 90% of the lyrics. I put together all the themes, the concepts, and it's not worthy of human compassion. I took that line directly from a book by Philip Zimbardo. He did the Stanford Prison Experiment, and this book is called The Lucifer Effect. And it talks about how good people do bad things, or what kind of environmental factors or behavioral situations can lead a person to do evil.
Yeah.
And Not Worthy of Human Compassion was basically a descriptor of how different social circles have enemies. We are for this, they are not, they are enemy, therefore it's okay to treat them poorly. They're not worthy of human compassion. Mm-hmm. We see it in ourselves, we see it on the media, and we see it everywhere else where if someone does something you don't like, it's okay to talk shit about them. It's okay to trash them. It's okay to fight them. It's okay to treat them like they're not human. And this band has always been very much more had kind of like a nihilist approach to the lyrics and the themes. It's a lot more like I think I was inspired by Weekend Nachos. I think there's a song called like No Saints. It's just basically like, doesn't matter what you do, people are shit.
Yeah.
You go to Asia, they eat dog. You live in America, we protect dogs at all costs.
Right.
Everyone has different values, but should we fucking hate each other? Should we treat each other like we're not human? Well, that's questionable. So another thing that went into the record is there's a lot of theme about mental illness and kind of these schizophrenic themes, and I think a lot of that goes into tie with the fact that from that book we also learned that the way that Zimbardo puts it is plasticity of human character, and I thought that was a great way to put it. Just basically that our character is so bendable based on situations, and we are susceptible to taking different actions depending on our environment or where we are mentally. That says something about like brainwashing or joining a cult or all these different things. It has to do with a certain amount of susceptibility. And so the more vulnerable you are, the more likely you are to take on that poor influence. So, I mean, there's a lot of talk about like delusions and psychosis and all this stuff. And I think that ties really well into the fact that, he's trying to communicate that we aren't as in control of our minds as we believe we are. And the thing that I wanted to put into the record was kind of find a sound or a theme to make people feel a sense of insecurity over the fact that we're not in control of our minds as much as we wish we are, that we may be under a delusion, or that our world, even as it truly exists, can sound like a delusion. And we talk about conspiracies or all these wild things that actually are happening in the world. And then if if someone just heard about everything that was happening in the world, they'd be like, nah, you're crazy. You're not serious.
Who oversees kind of the visual direction of the band?
Mostly myself.
Okay.
I mean, that kind of ties in with the theme. So I consign a lot of art from a few different people, some different designers. We have our guy Jet, who goes under the handle, what is it? Hellhammer, or God is a Coward. And he did a lot of like collage work, and as well as drawings that caught my eye. So I got him to do a few things for us, and whenever just something comes out, I make sure I get the approval from the guys and make sure they're interested in the direction, and we go from there.
Album's out the 25th. On your Bandcamp page, there's currently only one show listed for September. What's the plan for, I don't know, this fall or the rest of this year?
So we announced we have a secret show in July. So can't say much more about that.
Okay.
And then we start our tour with Spy, which is just California dates. It's August 1st through the 10th, I think, maybe the 11th. And we announced 3 dates in early September with Weekend Nachos. A couple of those shows are with Haggis. And we're playing a festival down in San Diego called Death or Glory at Harley Davidson. There's some cool bands on that, like Mongrel, Contract Killer. Let's see, I think Cold as Life is playing, TSOL, DI. It's interesting because we got like some old school punk bands, some hardcore bands. It's going to be interesting to see those crowds clash.
Yeah.
And then after that, we are going to have some stuff in October. And then come spring next year, we're making some plans.
Nice. Awesome. We're
at the point now where our availability has opened up. So we're going to go further than Texas. We really haven't gotten out, even though we've gotten tons of offers to go pretty much everywhere. We haven't been past properly like the West Coast. We've gone to Texas as far east, and then we've gone as far north as like Salt Lake City. So
nice.
Not that far for, a band that's put out 3 records and accomplished the things that we have. We've had a pretty backwards approach to promoting ourselves, which hasn't been like, let's go out and play shows so people catch us. It's been more so like, if people really dig it, we'll go. And it's kind of worked in our favor. We have a lot of demand in a lot of different places, which is cool. We definitely have to hit the East Coast. We don't have plans yet, but it has to happen. Silence does well. We